So as we get into the early summer, all of your favorite moving baits are starting to get bogged down with grass. And there are very few baits out there that really shine in shallow water like a fluke. And I'm not talking about in 10 foot or less, I'm talking about in 5 foot or less up there in the dirt where there's still a big group of fish that people just overlook because they cannot get their baits through it. So today what I'm going to talk about is how to fish a fluke super shallow, some really cool rigging techniques, and really how to fish it to catch more fish behind other guys. So a fluke is one of those baits that's just honestly fun to fish because anybody can pick it up and throw it, but if you don't have it rigged right, you can really lose a lot of fish and honestly just not catch fish when you're fishing around a lot of grass. So what I want to talk about today is specifically the gear that we're going to throw before we get up on the deck, so that way you guys aren't getting frustrated with the hooks that you're throwing. And one hook that I really want to talk about, if I take it off of here, is the ZWG by Z-Man. You guys have heard me talk about this hook a few different times, and I really just love it because it pairs really, really well with soft plastics like we have here today. This is actually the Z-Man Streaks. It's a Laztec, and I'm going to get into why I like to fish that bait specifically when I'm up shallow like we are today. But the ZWG just has a keeper on it in the front and then a little bobber stop on the hook shank itself to keep your fluke positioned right while you're skipping it, while you're casting it, so it doesn't slide down your bait or your hook at all. Now what I want to talk about is specifically the gear that you're going to throw that on, because one thing that people forget is the swivel in front of the fluke. So I'll have about 12 inches of line and then a swivel, because what that'll do is that'll actually keep your fluke nose down, so that way it's not skipping out of the surface, so that way it actually gets down into the water a little bit. So generally it's just the same line that I'm throwing, which on this rod is 14-pound fluorocarbon, because it'll sink a little bit and pull that down. So I'll just cut a strip, tie it to the hook, tie it to the swivel, and then I'll tie it to the swivel, and then I have my fluke. But then the rod that I'm throwing it on is actually a bait caster. And I know most people see guys throwing a fluke on spinning gear, and I do love to throw a fluke on spinning gear. But when I'm up fishing where we are today and that super shallow stuff as that grass starts to get heavier, I don't like to throw a spinning rod as much because those fish can just get you bogged down. You all know a 1-pounder feels like a dang 4-pounder when you get into some of this hydrilla milfoil around some of the docks that we are today. And so I have a 7-to-1 or even an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. And then this is actually my favorite chatterbait rod. This is an Arc Invoker Tour 7.4 moderate medium heavy. And what I like that is because those fish kind of load up on it. Because one of the hardest things to do is feel when a fish eats a fluke when you really can't see them. And so you have that moderate where I can really feel those fish, load up on them, and then hit them without them knowing that I feel that they're there. So when I'm working that fluke, I can feel them, load up, hit them, and then you have that medium heavy backbone to be able to pull those fish out of there, because when you're fishing a big single hook, sometimes it can be kind of troublesome if you're using lighter gear to really drive that hook home, which is why I like to use a bait caster right now. I will also have my fluke set up for a spinning rod down below, so if you guys like to throw a fluke and you're not fishing around a lot of grass, I will have that. And then if you're still missing fish on a fluke, besides using this hook, if you're using this and you're still missing fish, having them swat at it and you're not catching them, at the end of the video I'm going to talk about a couple different really cool rigging techniques that I do to pick up those extra fish. But now what we're going to do is we're going to get up on the deck and I'm going to show you how I like to fish this bait, because it's been really cool today and we've been catching a lot of fish. So anybody out of the package can fish a fluke and catch fish because it's just one of those baits that really gets a lot of bites. But there's a bunch of different ways that you can fish it to really enhance how you catch fish on it and catch a lot more fish on it. And so again, I have this on straight fluorocarbon on a bait caster. We're up around some docks. We're in 5 foot or less because we have fish right now in that post-spawn, spawn, and pre-spawn all in the same mix to where they all want to be in that general area, and we have a nice wind-blown bank up here. So all I'm going to do is really try to make a nice long cast with this bait or target orient it. Right now I'm going to put it right up along this dock, and all I'm going to do is let that bait sink a second, because that swivel will weight that nose down to get it to that bait working under the water a little bit. And the one way I want to talk about retrieving it first is a simple twitch, twitch, and a pause. A twitch, twitch, and a pause, just like you would fish a jerkbait, because a fluke is also known as a soft plastic jerkbait. And just like a jerkbait, I'm going to mix up the retrieve with how I twitch it. So I might do a 1, 1, 2, and I'm always going to point back at that bait, because when I'm around targets like we are right here, I like to get that bait to go side to side instead of forward, because I'm not trying to cover a lot of water with it. I'm trying to get fish that are around this dock to come out and eat it. But if you're not around a dock, what you can also do is cast that bait out, and you can do what's called a pull technique, where I just pull and stop it, because what that bait will do is shimmer as it comes through the water, and then it'll pause and just kind of hang out. And I'll pull it and stop it, pull it and stop it. And you'll notice whenever I stop it, When I get ready to pull it again, I'm gonna kind of check it, because a lot of times if you can't see your fluke to know those fish ate it, you want to check it real quick to see if one has grabbed it and is sitting there holding on to it, so that way you can reel up the slack and then hit that fish. The one thing I want to talk about with retrieving a fluke is there's no wrong way to do it when you're twitching it like this. You can add more to get that bait to work faster, or you can do it a lot slower if you're around something that you want to be on. The key to remember is when those fish are trying to eat it, if you're twitching it really fast, a lot of times they'll miss the bait. So don't stop working the bait. You can keep twitching it to keep those fish's action, but then a fluke also has the fall rate of a Senko a lot of times. And so those fish, if you have one miss it, twitch it a couple times and pause it, because they'll come up and just suck that bait in. So you probably noticed right off the bat, the fluke that I'm fishing, this Z-Man Streaks, is super bright. Like, this is a neon chartreuse bait, and the reason that I picked that is because we are in a super clear water fishery, which goes against everything that you might think. Because when you think about clear water fisheries, you're thinking about something super natural, right? That blends in with the background, that's not gonna spook those fish. This is not the case. I want those fish to see this bait, because a fluke, probably the coolest thing about it is the action, just like a jerkbait. And I want those fish to see it, because the more they see it and the more they see that darting and dying fish action, the more they trigger on it, especially because we have a lot of smallmouth up in here, and we all know how much smallmouth love to chase, and they love the color chartreuse. And so the reason that I picked that up is because we're up around a bunch of docks, we're in these grass beds, and I want to give those fish the best chance to see that bait from a distance, especially because we have overcast and a little bit of wind today. And I'm telling you, when you put a chartreuse colored fluke on there, dude, they come unglued on it when they can see it. And the cool part is when you throw it out, this thing basically can be seen from the sun. So as you're working it, you'll literally see it darting, and all of a sudden you'll see it like somebody turn the lights off on your bait. And so that's how you can really, really easily tell one has got it, and you can reel down and jack them. Another couple colors that I really like is going to be that stereotypical bubblegum. Always a great option. I'm not sure why they love just these random colors like that, but that bubblegum is a really sweet option. And then you can start to get into more of your natural, your whites, your shad colors. And one bait that I want to talk about that you saw me hold up right there was these are the Z-Man Streaks. If you get into a situation where you want to throw a more natural one, where you think it's going to be a little bit better, that 5-inch Z-Man scented jerk shads in that electric shad color is an awesome bait, because these ones actually have a fall rate. So if you're trying to fish it over fish that are busting, that you want to blend in super well, this is a great color to have in the boat. So I always keep a few bags of these in there. Make sure you're storing your Elastex away from all other plastics, or you will have a melted ball of goo by the end of the day. So I keep all of my Elastex in their own flambeau boxes, typically in their own bags, to keep them perfectly natural and perfectly straight. One cool thing when you're fishing a fluke is a lot of times you will see those fish eat it, because you're not fishing super deep in the water column. You're usually fishing that top third, and you're fishing up shallow like we are. And so you can watch how those fish are reacting to it as you're moving it. If you're twitching it really fast and they're kind of right up on it, you can keep twitching it fast. But if you see one come up on it, you can twitch it slower, get more of that fall rate into there to really get those fish to trigger on it, or even do a pull to try to get those fish to really charge up and do it. But what I wanted to talk about with this Streaks that you see right here is this is actually a floating soft plastic bait, just like most Elastec baits are. So the reason that I like that floating is because we're up here in 5 foot or less, the weight of that ZWG and the weight of that swivel hold it down and actually drag it down just so slightly. So when I cast this bait around a lot of these targets, or even up shallow, that bait almost pauses like a jerk bait and suspends perfectly in the water column. So as I'm working that bait, when I stop it, it's not like most traditional flukes where it's gonna fall down to the bottom and settle into the bottom when we're up here super shallow. It'll literally just suspend there, so I can really get a good chance to work that bait the entire distance of my cast, instead of, you know, like a lot of the heavier weighted flukes, they fall down to the bottom, and so you have to try to keep working that bait, and so you have to work it fast to get that bait back to the boat. This one, you can fish it super slow and really take your time with it. Like, we have a cold front today, and that's why I picked it up, because I can draw those fish out, pause that bait, and then really get them to trigger on it. So right now, the way we had this fluke rigged was just on a stereotypical, that ZWG hook. But if you're still missing fish, there's a couple different ways you can rig it. So one key way is actually adding a treble hook. And so all you would do is thread a treble hook on, add another peg, or like a stop that you would put when you add a trailer hook on there, and then put your fluke back on, because then all you're gonna do is have that extra treble hook hanging off the back right there, so if they swat at it, they'll still get a hook in them. It's a great way if you're fishing open water around this cover. I would not advise it, but it's a great way if you're missing smallmouth or missing largemouth that are really just slapping at the bait to really catch those fish. And then another way is I'm going to use a fluke that I have laying on the ground right here, minus the tail being chewed off, is the way a fluke hooks a fish. If those fish eat it head first, you have to turn that bait 180 degrees to be able to hook those fish. And sometimes if they're eating it head first, the distance that a typical big EWG has to turn around is pretty big, and you'll pull the bait out of those fish's mouth, or you'll be skin hooking them. So what you can also do with that turning point being so big on that EWG is use a 1/0 drop shot hook in that trocar. And again, guys, I will have everything that we talked about today linked down below. And you'll just nose hook that bait like so, because then the pivot point is so much shorter and you don't have to worry about that long pivot point, and you'll get those fish hooked a lot better. So those are just a couple rigging techniques that I really like to help me increase my hookup ratio when I'm missing fish. So the ZWG that I'm using today is a non-weighted hook. You can see it's just the hook weight, but it also comes in an 1/8 and a 3/16. So when you're fishing some of these fluke style baits over some of these deeper edges, or if you want to fish them a little bit faster, you can use some of these heavier weighted hooks, because then it just opens up more options for you. And again, they still have the same keepers on the front and the back to hold that fluke in position. And these little bobber stops do not hurt your hookup ratio whatsoever. They slide freely, and that Elastec even slides over top of them when a fish eats it. So you will not miss fish because of it, because I've heard guys talking about it, and I promise you, you will not. Smallmouth? Largemouth. Yeah. All right. Get out of my way. Bingo. So not a giant, but a nice little fish that we got on that chartreuse fluke. You can see he swatted at that because he could see it, and so he came right up and just absolutely whacked it up here on the bank. Because that streaks is floating a little bit, it stays suspended, and those fish just have a really good opportunity when you want to pause it, because we are in the wind right now. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it is stirring. So we're gonna get back out there, catch a few more, but if you guys want to see more fishing videos, be sure to click up here. But now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you how to catch more fish by getting to know the guy that created them. So we're gonna dive into the good word of the Lord. So stick around if you wanna hear about that, because I really think you guys should. But don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you go. Let's dive into it. My face got a little burnt. Anybody order their John extra crispy? Alrighty guys, so as always, we are going to end with the good word of the Lord. And today I want to talk about pain a little bit, because it seems like no matter where you turn when we're on this earth, there is pain. Whether it be relationships, whether it be your family, whether it be your job, whether it be physical pain, whether it be mental pain. It is literally everywhere around us. There is no way to get through pain. And it seems like no matter what you do, you could eat healthy and still endure pain. You could love right and still endure pain, right? There is nothing that you can do to get away from pain in our life. But what does the Bible say about pain? Well, I'm going to turn to Romans 5, and it is 5:3. And not only that, but we also rejoice in our afflictions, because we know that affliction produces endurance, endurance produces proven character, and proven character produces hope. This hope will not disappoint us, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us. So I love that passage. Probably one of my absolute favorite passages in the Bible, because it talks about the bright side of pain. Even though it says affliction, it really means pain, because, man, it always leads to something better. And one verse that I heard, I don't know exactly where I heard it, but it was somewhere along the line. It says, sometimes the pain you're going through is not meant to build you up, but meant to tear you down from what you were to build you to what you're going to become. And that's just something that I really, really love to think about, because every time I go through struggles, it's always nice to have that little voice in the back of your head that's like, okay, this really sucks, but why does it suck? And I wonder what it's going to do for me later. Because it'll give you a better attitude through a lot of that, and it'll honestly make you a better person to be around. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm going through struggles, generally I'm not the nicest person to be around. I'm working on it, but generally I'm not. And so this verse right here gives me a little bit of hope, which is what pain eventually leads to, because I know that pain is going to be on the better side of something else. It is going to be doing something for me in the long run that I can't see now. I'll relate it to college or school or training for whatever job you're at. At the beginning when you're training, it sucks. It feels like you don't know anything. It feels like you're doing all this work and you don't see the outcome yet. Pain in any part of your life is the exact same way. And I don't exactly know what pain you're going through, but whatever it is, I promise you it'll lead you to something better. You know, I always talk about one of the guys I knew. He was going through some severe pain, like he was losing family members, and he was like, what could this possibly help me with? I said, well, maybe it'll help you relate to somebody else who's going to need it a lot more than you are. You know what I mean? So there's always something that can come out of this. So again, that was Romans 5. It's like the first chapter, or the first little paragraph in 5, for those of you guys that want to dive into a little bit more. Romans is a great just book in the Bible to start with. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions on anything, be sure to comment down below. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button to follow the regular content that I have coming out. And God bless every single one of you guys. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.